So tonight we're going to learn about why you need car insurance or auto insurance, what car insurance is, and what coverages are provided. The automobile policy is filled with specific coverages, specific claims that you can make, and specific provisions of the policy that you really have to understand in order to, get your value or maximize your value of your auto policy that you're trying to get here. So, and again, maximize savings, and again, getting that value, not just looking at the most inexpensive part of this. That's really not going to protect you sufficiently if you're involved in an accident or if you have something happen to your vehicle. So why do you need car insurance? I think the basic tenet is it's the law. You have to have it. You have to have automobile insurance in order to drive. Unfortunately, there are thousands of drivers in Pennsylvania that don't have auto insurance, and that leaves them very vulnerable, and it also leaves you, the other drivers on the road, very vulnerable to auto accidents and not being able to recover damages for yourself. And we'll talk a little bit about how you can protect against that, because that's a very real threat that we all face driving down the road. So it's a fine if you don't have auto insurance. You can get a suspension of your license. You can be suspended for 3 months or more, and you may have to send in your registration and different things into PennDOT, which then takes even more time. For anybody that really wants to look up the code section, it's 75 PACS 1786, which requires the financial responsibility and has a variety of other requirements in addition to these requirements here. So everybody who is a owner of a vehicle has to have auto insurance. And you can have auto insurance, and you should have auto insurance even if you're not an owner of a vehicle, because you can be covered if you are a passenger of a vehicle or you are borrowing someone else's vehicle, like a family member or friend. So it's not just owners. Non-owners can also have automobile insurance, and we would advise that generally. You'll hear a lot today about just the minimums, get legal for less, and some companies out there will sell you, they only sell state minimum policies. Other more reputable companies will do have those available, and they have to advise you of those rights. Minimum policies in Pennsylvania are just like they sound. They're very minimal. They're very minimum. $5,000 for what they call first party medical, or medical that covers you at no fault, whether you're in an accident that's your fault or not. $1,530 for bodily injury coverage for another person. So if you cause an accident, then you provide that person $15,000 for one person, or if there's multiple people involved in the accident, up to $30,000 for all of the participants in the accident, all of the injured persons. $15,000 per person really doesn't go very far, and if you have that minimum, you really can subject yourself to a lawsuit, because it's not going to cover somebody very well if you've injured them. $5,000 is the minimum for property damage that you have to have for another driver. So if you cause an accident, that other person that you hit would have $5,000 in coverage for their vehicle from your auto policy. Again, $5,000 for most vehicles today is not going to be nearly sufficient to cover the damages for, we're seeing these vehicles that are, $100,000 And that's not, not the fancy cars anymore. We're talking about trucks and different things. So $5,000 can almost just be a scratch. So you subject yourself to to risk and harm if you only have that minimum of $5,000 to protect somebody else. The rest of the coverages that you see in your auto insurance policy are all optional coverages. So you have the ability to purchase a variety of optional coverages, and you should. I mean, you should purchase as many as you can, because those coverages will protect yourself and your passengers and your family members and friends if there's an accident. So just a kind of a very brief overview. I mean, we could get into talking about these particular optional provisions, for each one of them for an hour. But the first thing you want to do if you're joining this webinar and you're taking away from this is you want to pull a copy of your declarations page. If you have an online app for your auto insurance, or if you have a claims agent, or you can go online and you can easily find what they call your declarations page. It's just a few pages, and we're going to go over a sample one. But that really tells you most everything you need to know, I guess, as a preliminary view of your auto policy, what coverages you have, and also gives you the cost of each of those coverages, so you can look and see what what type of coverages are the most expensive, and you might be able to tweak those a little bit to try to get you, like I said, the best value. The number one thing, I encourage everyone to go and take a look at their own declarations page. Whether you're sending it in to us or not, at least take a look at it and understand the provisions. And if you don't understand the provisions of the policy, then either ask us or ask your insurance agent to please explain those, so you better understand. So the first primary thing we look at is, are you full tort or limited tort? You definitely want to make sure that you have full tort coverage on your auto policy. I hear over and over and over that people have full coverage. I don't know exactly what that means, but people confuse quote unquote full coverage, which usually they're talking about the protections to their own vehicles, to full tort. Full tort is a way that in Pennsylvania you can waive some of your rights to to recover damages in certain types of auto accidents. And you never want to do that, because the threshold sometimes is very high, and even if you feel like you've met the threshold, you often have to litigate or file suit on those cases, rather than in most of the cases you can get a fair and reasonable settlement with an attorney. So you want to make sure you have full tort. They call it UM or UIM, which is uninsured motorist coverage or underinsured motorist coverage. So uninsured motorist, if you're hit by an uninsured driver, like I said, there's a lot of those out there, then your coverage on your auto insurance actually can pay for your bodily injuries, your injuries, which include pain and suffering, lost wages, missed time from work, and medical bills. So those things become very important. First party medical coverage, which is the medical insurance that first protects you in an accident, whether it's your fault or whether it's someone else's fault. So most people get a little confused about this. If you are in an accident and somebody else is at fault, your insurance policy, your auto insurance, is in the first line of payment for your medical bills. The minimum is $5,000, state minimum. So you have to carry $5,000 to protect yourself. but you can very inexpensively get more. That's one of the value indicators that I'll bring to your attention is first party medical. The difference between $5,000 and maybe $25,000, $50,000, or even $100,000 can only maybe just be a few dollars per year. So it becomes very important, and that's kind of a good value to think about raising your first party medical benefits. The keys to that is if you're involved in an accident, the first party medical has no copays, it has no deductibles, and all of the bills are reduced by the law. So we call it Act 6, but most of the providers are required to reduce their bills if you're being treated for an auto accident. So you get a lot of bang for your buck in those first party medical dollars. It's not uncommon for us to see, $30,000 or $40,000 in billed coverage, only being paid out $5,000, between $5,000 and $10,000. So it's a very good way to get a lot of your medical bills paid, and you don't have to come out of your pocket in any way. If you what we call exhaust, or you run out of your first party medical coverage, then your health insurance pays, whether that's Medicare or Medicaid or a private health insurance company. And as we all know, in private health insurance, then we have issues with copays, deductibles, and they also may have what we call a subrogation lien, or they may actually be able to get some of the money that is paid by the person that injured. So it's very important. First party medical is kind of the number one value type indicator. UIM is the second, really value indicator we'll look at. That really is not very expensive to increase those, proportionate to what you're doing, protecting yourself, your family, and your passengers. So those are all very important. Full tort and limited tort is price wise relatively expensive, although it's, like I said, the number one thing that you want to do. So if you have to take and buy a little bit less coverage in other areas, you want to make sure that you're having the minimum coverage plus the full tort, and that's really the baseline coverage. So that's usually about a third more, so 25% to a third more expensive to get full tort rather than limited tort.
Hey, Matt.
But yes.
Can I interrupt? We're on the why you need car insurance slide. I just wanted to make sure you hadn't tried to progress and it was freezing or something.
Oh no, we're still talking about, no, we're good. We're still talking about protecting your passengers.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't freezing up. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so these are just some general overviews, and we're going to get into some more specifics on some slides moving forward. Protecting your assets, home and savings. So that's another area of the coverage. The bodily injury coverage protects other people, and the property damage liability provision protects other people for their vehicles. So you have, if you cause an accident, you have those protections for others, and in turn those help you protect your home and assets, because if you have sufficient auto insurance, then your auto insurance is taking care of any claims or settlements, and you're decreasing your likelihood that you're going to get sued or have to come out of your own pocket for any expenses. So the next is why you need car insurance, and now we're on to protect your vehicle. So there are a few optional coverages to protect your own vehicle. Comprehensive coverage is an optional coverage that protects your own vehicle for any kind of damages. Well, not any, but most damages caused by anything other than an auto accident. So damages to your car, not caused by a crash, any type of natural disaster. I've seen trees, falling on cars. In Western Pennsylvania, we have a lot of deer strikes. So the deer, that would be covered under your comprehensive. Rodents eat, get into build nests in your vehicle, fire, vandalism, theft, all of those things are protected under your comprehensive provision of your policy. Collision coverage is if you get in an accident and it's your fault, if you hit, an object, if we scrape something, we break a mirror, we, hit another vehicle, hit a pole, whatever it may be, collision coverage is that provision that's covering you. That is an optional coverage. You're not required to have that on your own vehicle. And comprehensive and collision coverage are actually the most expensive, generally the most expensive provisions of your auto policy. So, if you have older vehicles, you may want to take a look at that, although it's very difficult to lose a vehicle and not have any coverage. But if we're talking about where we give up coverage, we want to look at the value of your vehicle and make sure that you're getting a good value in paying the comprehensive and collision coverages. So the statistics are not great. I mean, there's a lot of crashes. If anybody's driven around, I know every morning I listen to the radio, and it's inevitably, there's crashes on every major roadway. So it does happen a lot. There were a lot of reported crashes, approximately 13 crashes per hour throughout the Commonwealth. And 3 persons are fatally injured in reportable traffic crashes per day. So there are a lot of crashes. So this isn't just this is a very real danger that we're trying to protect against. So we're going to go into specifically, what we've been talking about a little bit in an overview. We're going to talk about required coverages, optional coverages, and shopping priorities. There's a lot of information out there that talks about when to look for different car insurance coverages. So we'll talk about that as well. But what does the car insurance cover? Medical benefits, that would be what first party medical, what I was speaking about. This pays your medical bills regardless of fault. So it's a very good thing to have, and it's good to increase that $5,000 because the price of that is not absorbently high. Bodily injury liability, that protects somebody else that you hit. Again, we went over that. 1530, and that is called a split policy. 15,000 for any one person injured, and 30,000 as an aggregate to an entire accident. So I had not long ago a family of 4 in a vehicle that was injured, and so they were all badly injured, and there was a split policy. It was a little higher than this, but each person, because there were 4, could not collect the full single limit amount. So in this particular case, if you had 4 persons that were injured, then they could only collect 30,000 instead of the full amount. Property damage liability, again, at $5,000, it would just be a tap at this point. I mean, it's a bumper and some paint, so that definitely needs to be raised if you can. So we're going through here a little bit about the cost of medical treatment. I think everybody knows that medical treatment is very, very expensive, and like I said before, first party medical benefits help to rein in those costs a little bit, because they are statutorily obligated to only charge a certain amount for certain treatments, and a lot goes a long way when it's being billed by first party medical. So is your medical expense coverage should be sufficient to pay the following common medical expenses. And these are pretty common, expenses we would see. Oftentimes we see that even on what we would consider minor crashes, minor injuries, we would see an ambulance, a hospital visit, imaging, and prescriptions, and then usually physical therapy or chiropractic treatment. So in more egregious cases, we're seeing surgeries, medical devices, and home health care, and all of those things. There's a little bit more specific information on limited tort. Limited tort equals bad. We never want this. We want everybody to check their policies to make sure they do not have limited tort. It's just it really shouldn't be even legal, and it's not in most states, but Pennsylvania hangs on to it. Full tort, full tort is just your limited tort is a waiver of rights. Full tort is just your normal rights that everybody lives with and that we have, and we never want to, if we can help it, we never want to waive any of our rights to any type of liability. Uninsured motorist coverage. Again, that's one of the key value indicators where we can really get some value out of that. The coverage applies to you, so you're protecting yourself and your family, folks that borrow your vehicle, passengers. Uninsured motorists protects you if you are hit by an uninsured motorist. And nationally, 15% of drivers are uninsured, which is very scary. So that's why we need to get this coverage on everyone's policy, if we're able to do that. UIM, underinsured motorists. So if we get hit by that person who has minimum coverage, and we're significantly injured, then we collect that 15 or 30 from that policy, and we move on to get the rest of our damages from our own insurance. There's a lot of benefits to that. You get to choose the coverage. You're not reliant on someone else. And when you're dealing with your own insurance company, they have a duty to you, a contractual obligation. They have a fear of bad faith. And so they have to cooperate with you. They have to treat you fairly. And so we see much more reasonable and just resolutions of claims under UM and UIM policies. We see better customer service. We see more knowledgeable claims adjusters. We just have a better experience under these provisions because of the adjuster and the company's relationship with you, the consumer, the injured party. Stacking is very, very important, although it's mostly overlooked. And stacking is another one, I guess would say number 3 or number 4 if we're including limited tort on the on the value indicator. Adding stacking onto your insurance policy is an absolute must for many, many reasons. So there are different kinds of stacking, and there are a lot of different cases that actually came down within the last 5 years on stacking. But what it used to be was if you have 2 vehicles on your auto policy, then for optional coverages like UIM and UM, you actually got to double those or stack them. So if you had $100,000 in UIM coverage, you could actually attach stacking to your policy, and you could have 200. So 100, 300 would turn into 200, 600 just by adding stacking onto your policy. And again, that's very, very inexpensive to do. In recent years, stacking has become even more important, because now we're able to stack amongst other policies. So we can stack if you have a motorcycle policy with one company and an auto policy with another company, as long as you have stacking on both of those policies, you can add those policies together, essentially stack them. And you can do that with other household members. So if you have an adult child or a child that has their own policy, you may fall under their policy under the what they call the resident relative provision. You can stack with their insurance, and there's a lot of different insurance policies that people have out there. I mean, there's boat insurance, there's RV insurance, four-wheeler insurance, motorcycle, and auto and umbrella. So you can stack on all of those, but you have to have stacking on each and every one of those policies. And the insurance agents and folks may kind of scoff at that because they'll say, well, you only have one vehicle, so why would you want stacking? It's because you can stack with other policies. It's not just stacking within your own policy. So that becomes very important. I've done many cases with stacking issues. I've stacked husband and wife policies. I've stacked policies that are owned by the same person. I've stacked grandparent policies. I've stacked 3 policies on top of one another. So it becomes very, very important in a catastrophic injury case that you have, stacking on all of your coverages. So that's a number 4 important value tip to take a look at. Collision coverage, we pretty much went over these. Collision coverage pays for collision that you cause. It covers your vehicle, and it's optional. Comprehensive pays for theft or damage to your vehicle or any other type of damage to your vehicle that is not your fault. And you can buy a lot of different things. I mean, you can buy wage loss coverage, you can buy extraordinary medical benefits, you can buy death benefits, you can buy towing, you can buy roadside assistance. There's endless amounts of coverages you can buy. Those are all fine, but we're kind of talking about getting the best value policy. So if you feel like one of those things is important to you to get a good value and you're getting a good price, then that's fine. You can add those on. Rental reimbursement coverage if your vehicle's in the shop, income loss, and funeral benefit. If you have a auto accident that results in a death. So insurance shopping, priorities, price is definitely not the only consideration, but I think nationally here it is the biggest, the biggest consideration. Obviously, insurance is very expensive, and we're all on a budget to some extent to try to make sure we've got everything paid for. It's important to shop around. There are some benefits to staying with a particular company for a long, long time, but in my opinion, the benefits of shopping around outweigh the benefits of staying with a particular company. Anytime you have a life change, you add a driver, you move, you purchase a new vehicle, purchase something else that needs to be insured, or one of your children become, an available driver, you should at least contact your agent to get price quotes and make sure that you are getting the best deal, because the auto insurances are primarily all providing the same product, as long as we're looking at these individual policy provisions. So our advice is understand your insurance needs. You really need to understand the policy provisions and how they interplay. And again, that we can help you with that. You got to go beyond the basic coverage, and you can go with a reputable claims adjuster, someone that's willing to help you. There's many good agents out there that can shop different insurance companies, so you're not having to do 10 searches for different insurance companies. And if anybody wants the name of a really good insurance broker, just email me, and we can send that over to you. So maximizing insurance savings. So there's a lot of things that go into, insurance premiums, and it's a little bit like it's a little bit like your financial report. We don't know exactly, but definitely credit-based issues. So this is an insurance. So they're looking at, what is this person's, proclivities. Driving record. Obviously, if you have other accidents, then that is taken into consideration in price. And driving records, things do stay on your driving record for a while, and you can actually challenge certain things. I mean, I've had situations where people are coming to me saying, "Hey, look, the insurance company I'm trying to renew my insurance or switch, and they're saying that this accident was my fault, and they're counting it against me, and it really wasn't." And we've helped them, maybe written a letter or contacted the insurance agent to try to get that, decision kind of reversed on the record of your auto insurance history. You want to pick your car carefully. Cars that cost more, definitely are more expensive. Particularly, you see that in the comprehensive and collision, because the more expensive the vehicle and the more likely it's subject to theft or other issues, the more expensive that particular provision is going to be. Place of residence. So anytime you move, you want to make sure that you're updating your insurance company, because they look at the area you live in to see how many accidents are there, and they use that data to calculate the insurance policy. So usually rural areas are cheaper, less expensive for auto insurance, because there are less accidents. So if you move from the city or the suburbs from the city to the suburbs, or suburbs to a rural area, you could get a less expensive policy for the same terms. Some tips here on, getting discounts or lowering your premiums. And again, this is kind of change in life things. So you can combine coverages. If you purchase a home, now you can get a homeowner's policy and an auto policy, and oftentimes you're getting a discount on that. You can list the occasional drivers on least expensive cars. You can get them their own policies if that is less expensive. You could raise your deductible. So, it's something that we're looking at. What is the best value? If you're talking about purchasing a provision of a policy that might eventually, get you thousands of dollars if you're injured, to raise a deductible a few $100s for your most expensive provisions there, comprehensive and collision, and you may want to consider doing that. Or you can just, you can put that money that you're saving into other parts of your policy. There's all types of different discounts. Some of them are gimmicky, some of them are real. So each individual, and everyone's heard the commercials, but each individual insurance company has good driver discount and, low mile discount, and all types of different discounts. So you can get some, you can factor that in whenever you're looking at different companies. So I've provided a sample of my declarations page, and I'm currently with Progressive, as you can see, but I think it's important to look at a declarations page and understand what exactly you're looking at. so you can, you can make sure that your coverages are sufficient, and or you can send it into, one of us to take a look at. So if you look on page 2 here, on the right side, you're looking at outline of coverage, and the top part are coverages relating to one vehicle, and then the second is relating to a second vehicle I have. So the first one, and you can see the differences in prices based on, a little bit more expensive vehicle at the top, a 2019 Buick as opposed to 2015 Ford. So at the bottom. But most importantly, and why I'm putting this up here is because you can see the cost of each of these, and this is just mine, but everyone's will be a little different. But you can see the cost and how they relate to the different policy provisions. So just taking one of my vehicles here, liability to others is a very expensive, one of the most expensive parts of the policy. And so you're getting property damage of 100,000 and bodily injury 100, 300 for $304. I've increased my first party benefits from $5,000 to 100,000. And you can see the value of that is pretty good. It's only $111 for that huge increase. I've added income loss and funeral benefits, which are also very inexpensive, $10. And so income loss could be up to $50,000 if I was in a bad accident, and that's only $10. So that's I would say that's another value indicator there for you. Look at uninsured motorist coverage, which we talked about, and 15% of people are uninsured, and that's $27 for 100, 300. And again, you got the little trick here of being stacked. And so the law says I can't buy more underinsured and uninsured motorist coverage. I can't buy more protection for me than I can for others, but I can stack it as kind of a little trick. And I can actually get 200, 600 rather than the 100, 300. So I can increase it that way. It's kind of like a backdoor way you can increase it. But again, it's relatively expensive, particularly uninsured. Underinsured is a little bit more, but again, it's with folks out there either uninsured or at the minimum, it's relatively inexpensive comparatively. If you look at comprehensive and collision, again, this is the most expensive provisions in the policy. And if you look down here to the Ford, it's about half price. So operating a vehicle that's 4 years older is, definitely has got a little discount there. And got the roadside assistance and some extra rental reimbursement. That's actually relatively expensive. It's not a great value. So I may remove that now that I'm looking over this, but it's up to you, whatever you feel is valuable. If you have another vehicle at home and you can drive that if there's an accident, then that's really of no value to you. So that's something that you can skip and put your money in other parts of the provision of the policy that are more helpful to you. So again, I think it's very important to take a look at these, and this would look very similar. I've had Progressive, I've had Erie, I've had State Farm, I've had Farmers maybe, I've had a variety of car insurances, and they all look almost identical to this. So you can take a look at this and compare it for yourself, when you pull your declarations page. And we've provided a variety of links here. The first one is the Pennsylvania Insurance Guide, Auto Insurance Guide, and it's kind of a general overview. It runs similar to this presentation, so you can take a look at this presentation, or you can take a look at that website, and then there are just some other websites for you to take a look at. Crash Facts, which will probably scare you, but so all right, so it looks like we do have some Q&A.